beautiful.
Hello, lovers of the world. This is Cinta speaking. I love listening to new music. It's really fun to find something new to obsess over, whether that's a new album, a new artist, or a new song. I'm always trying to chase that sense of joy and triumph of finding something new to love. It is once again time to reflect and rank everything that I listened to in the last month into a tier list. So before we get into that, let me break down my grading system first so we're all on the same page. The highest tier is called Year-End List Material. This tier is specifically for releases that came out in 2025. This is a way for me to keep track of the new projects and to remind myself to look back on these releases when the time comes at the end of the year. Only albums that were released in 2025 are going to be allowed on this tier, while in the tiers below, any album from any year can be put in. The albums on this tier are those that I feel have some longevity and those I feel like were the best that the year had to offer. Then the tier below that is called French Toast. These albums are perfectly enjoyable, albums that I really loved. This is also the highest an album can be placed in if that album was not released in 2025. But this is also where I would put albums that even though I enjoyed, I don't think I will be considering for my year-end list. However, if that album was placed in the tier below, that doesn't disqualify them automatically from being placed in my year-end list. I'm open to moving and shuffling stuff around. The tier below that is called Gems Found in the Mind. These are albums that have a few treasured tracks that stood out to me, that are memorable, that have songs that I will keep in my heavy rotation. And I would have no problem finding praise for this album or recommending it to somebody else. Now, that would probably be the biggest difference between albums in this tier and the tier below that, which I've called the most album ever. So albums in this tier, I will have like nothing against. They were decent or pleasant enough listening experiences, but they don't really have anything particularly memorable enough for me to remind me that this album exists. The second to last tier I have called, well, I learned something new. So I'm always down for expanding my horizons and I like to stay updated on releases, but if that album that I listen to doesn't hit, then that's just that. However, I try to put a positive spin on everything and I'm still grateful to music or albums or artists for teaching me something that maybe I didn't know before listening to this album. So if an album taught me something new about the artist or the genre that it's in, or even myself, that I'm still grateful to that listening experience. And I have a level of respect for albums in this tier that I don't really have for the albums in the tier below. This tier I call the Eggs You Break for Your French Toast, which is a more positive way of saying that I didn't really like this album, but at least I gave it a shot. And in your search for music that you love, you will come across music that you just don't vibe with, and that's totally okay. I always hesitate to call an album like bad because I feel like when it comes to personal taste, all the things that you dislike about something will end up being all the reasons why somebody else will like that same thing. As a disclaimer, just because I put an EP or an album in this tier doesn't mean that I dislike the artist. I am just grading this particular release. But now that that's out of the way, we can definitely go into grading everything that I listened to in March. So before that though, I really want to shout out the t-shirt that I am wearing today from the Lane Wayne Festival that I attended in February earlier this year. This is in the order of which I listened to each album in. The first thing I listened to in March was Amortage by Jisoo. This was released in 2025. So Jisoo is a member of the global K-pop girl group Blackpink. She, alongside her other three members actually, are now embarking on their own solo musical journeys after they had negotiated their way out of being in YG Entertainment. I think last year or the year before, I can't remember now. I have never really been sure what Jisoo wanted to do with her career. I always found it unclear as to whether she would still be interested in releasing music now that she wasn't contractually obligated to do so. I say that because she has always seemed to want to pursue acting more so than becoming or continuing to be a pop star. However, the release of this EP clears that up, doesn't it? So given that this is only 4 tracks long, this is the shortest project out of the Blackpink girls. I still think it's safe to say that out of the 4 members, she is the one whose top priority isn't necessarily music. And given that there are only 4 tracks in the project, we absolutely have enough time to do a track by track analysis. So first track is called Earthquake, the main single. It's a fairly boring electronic pop song about a new crush and the shock waves that the new affections can feel when you discover that new crush. Not only did I find this the weakest of the Blackpink solo singles so far, I also found it to be the weakest track of the EP, full stop. This is followed by the best track of the EP, in my opinion, Your Love, which is a really sweet, nostalgic pop electronic song that feels incredibly reminiscent of 2016. I close my eyes and all I can see is sunsets and Snapchat filters and Starbucks frappuccinos. You're driving down to Coachella with your teal dyed hair blowing in the breeze. I remember this era so vividly because I was there, and I can totally understand why she might gravitate towards this sound out of nostalgia. Not only is it strategic for her as a singer because her voice, I think, suits this type of sound really well. Following this song is Tears. I think it's quite cute. I like this playfulness that she has with how Tears and Cheers sound alike so it's like this person is kind of, woe is me, my love didn't pan out, now I'm here drinking in a bar and crying my eyes out. So I think that's quite cute. I like the wordplay that it has, and I think her delivery is great. I also really like the last song, Hugs and Kisses. Again, her delivery is really good. She has a lot of personality, and it's another smashing throwback to the late 2010s. Overall, I found Amortage to be a very short but cohesive and tight project. It goes from being in love with somebody, being struck with love with Earthquake, and then the honeymoon period with Your Love, and then the breakdown of that relationship with Tears, and then her being free from that relationship with Hugs and Kisses. So it's an incredibly basic story, but I'm impressed with the fact that there is a story at all, because I think a lot of K-pop projects don't even go that far. So I'm impressed with the intentionality nonetheless, even though it's completely bare minimum for a lot of other genres. I can't really give the EP anything higher than Gems Found in the Mind because it's so short, and especially since out of the 4 tracks, I feel like I only really liked one song, which is Your Love. So yeah, I'm gonna put that in Gems Found in the Mind. Although to be fair, the EP did leave a very positive impression on me of Jisoo as a solo artist. And then I listened to Pop Up by Dragon Pony. This is an EP that was released in 2024. Dragon Pony is a South Korean rock band formed by Antenna Entertainment, which I found out through my very brief research is an entertainment company as old as some of the big 4 K-pop companies, but funnily enough, I've never heard of this company until now. Dragon Pony debuted last year with this EP, and this is where them being part of a big and very established entertainment company comes in handy, because Dragon Pony were already performing at rock festivals and shows in their first year, which is like completely unheard of for any other kind of. They already seem to have a decent following as their first release had dropped. They had some fans pre-debut era, but frankly, I did not hear a lot about this band until I came across somebody else's favorite releases of 2024 list, and they were right to put this on their list because it is a really solid debut EP. They are very youthful and energetic. Even the name of the band is an obvious indicator to the silliness inherent to the group. The project is bursting with charming naivete. It's a reflection of the members' age, so don't expect any kind of edge. It's a very tame project. It's very much giving like Disney Channel band, it's not anything, groundbreaking, but it's really fun nonetheless. Pop Up, which is the main title, is a very standard juvenile song about standing out and not conforming or fitting the mold that society expects you to fill out, which feels very consistent with their age and presumably their target demographic, fellow students wanting to understand their place in the world and having their first taste of rebellion. Sure, whatever, what the hell, sure. There are 3 songs that are about a crush, which again is reflective of the target demographic. Not reinventing the wheel, but I still really enjoyed it. Despite being short, they displayed enough of a personality and showed enough potential that I don't mind putting this in French toast. And then I listened to Ive Empathy by Ive. This was released in 2025. Ive is a K-pop girl group that debuted in 2021. I have yet to find an Ive song that I actually really liked, even though they are very popular among K-pop fandoms. But I think, because they're popular, they're obviously doing a good job nonetheless. They have recently, I guess, adopted this identity of sampling older songs into their new ones, which is a pretty solid strategic move, though not wholly unique. Ava Max and Dua Lipa have been known to do the same thing, at least in the Western pop music world. And even in K-pop, it's not a practice that's not completely uncommon, but no one in K-pop has yet made it a consistent identity so far, aside from IVE. They first did this in 2023 with their song After Like, which sampled I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor, and that was a pretty good song and was decently commercially popular. They also did a collab with David Guetta for their song Supernova Love, I think is a Japanese release, which for some reason confusingly sampled Merry Christmas Mr. Lawrence. I have never heard of that song before, but I did find it a very odd pick nonetheless, because I went back and listened to the original and then listened to Ive's song, and I was like, what? So the girls continue this pattern with Suzanne Vega's Tom Steiner interpolation in the title track Attitude, and Whitney Houston's I Wanna Dance with Somebody interpolation in You Wanna Cry, which is a B-side in the album. So the girls had two title tracks. One is Attitude, and I can't remember what the other one's called, but I didn't like it, obviously, because I forgot what it's called. Go ahead and shoot me. I really, really hate Attitude. I don't like the Tom Steiner interpolation at all. I think it's a super odd choice to do with a song like this. It's definitely a bold move, but it has no payoff for me. It's kind of like with what they did with Supernova Love, giving why did you do that? But of course, your response to the interpolation being used is directly related to your relationship, not just with Ive as a musical group, but also with the original sampled song. So I already knew what Tom Steiner was. I already knew who Suzanne Vegas was, and I really like her as a musician. So to me, this feels kind of I don't know. I know it's weird. I don't like it. I can totally imagine that many of Ive's core audience have never heard of the song before, and this is their first time being introduced to the song through Ive, and that's fine, but I think that definitely colors their relationship with the Ive song, because they don't have this reservation or this need to keep that original song pure, which is what I'm feeling as an older listener. I'm 26. I'm not that old. I think the B-side, You Wanna Cry, is a little bit better when it comes to the interpolating, because I Wanna Dance with Somebody is such a hype, super fun song, very euphoric, but You Wanna Cry is obviously a little bit more sadder, a little bit more sentimental, and so I think there's an intentionality with subversing the joy found in the original into something sadder with the Ive version. So yeah, that makes sense, I guess. So I can say I feel like I respect the gumption that the group has, but personally, none of the executions have really impressed me, which is, I think, a sentence I can comfortably say with Ive's overall discography. I knew going into this project that what my relationship or my standing on Ive's music is anyway, so it wasn't like I was particularly surprised to find that I didn't gel with any of the songs. They're all just competently produced, but pretty forgettable pop music, in my opinion, that I don't have any particular attachment to, so I'm gonna put this in the most album ever. And then I listened to Frailty by Jane Remover. This was released in 2022. Jane Remover is an American musician best known for contributing to the rise of the subgenre of hyperpop called digicore. Jane Remover seems to use they/them pronouns, so I will be using they/them pronouns in my review. At the time of this video's release, they had just dropped their latest album, Revenge Seekers, and I thought that before I listened or attempted to listen to that album, that I would listen to the rest of Jane Remover's discography before that, so I'm starting off with their debut album. Frailty is undoubtedly a god-tier 5-star album. I really, really like. I don't know enough about digicore or hyperpop to make any significantly, useful, insightful commentary on it as an album, but I really, really, really enjoyed this. The only thing is that it's an album that I love, but an album that doesn't love me back, in the sense that I have to be careful when I listen to this because it's so overwhelming and loud, and it's done so purposefully to kind of make, commentaries and to kind of break the bounds of what music is supposed to sound like, and that's all stuff I really like about the album, but I kind of get overstimulated when I listen to it too much, or if I listen to it at the wrong time, to the point where I kind of get headaches from listening to it. The environment that I'm listening to the album has to be quiet enough that my mind can process the music, and I have tried listening to this in my mundane daily routine, like when I'm in public transport or when I'm going on walks or when I'm on the go, and it just doesn't work sometimes. So as much as I like this, it does physically hurt sometimes to like go back to it and listen to it. So I can only really listen to this in my room, which is kind of an interesting thing to think about, I guess, like given the context of digicore and hyperpop as a very much, it's the kind of thing that you have to make using laptop or your computer. So it's not really the kind of thing that you particularly envision being played outside. We can have like really interesting discussions about that maybe in the comments if you have anything insightful to say or contribute to that. Now, to be fair, this album is not the only album that I feel this way towards, as in like this isn't the only album that can give me headaches if I'm not careful enough. I can pretty much say this about any album that is done purposefully to be overwhelming and to be loud and to be in your face and confrontational in its sonic landscape. I have a lot of albums that I love that are the same. Like I'm not going to show it right now, but my CD collection. I really like this, so I'm going to put this in French toast, and I'm looking forward to the next Jane Remover album called Census Designated. And then I listened to Salvation by Rebecca Black. This was released in 2025. Rebecca Black is an American singer that odds are you have only heard of because of her viral song Friday from 2011. You might even be confused because you didn't realize that she was still making music or was making music at all. But I have actually been following Rebecca's music career since 2020 when she began working with Dorian Electra and collaborated with 100 Gex to remake Friday. I was a huge fan of her 2021 EP Rebecca Black Was Here, and I also really loved her debut album Let Her Burn in 2022. Therefore, it feels particularly validating to review her latest album and witness her sound reach this point. I always had a sense of faith with Rebecca, and I'm glad to see her get more attention and recognition for her work. In these past projects, Rebecca had leaned into a darker pop girl persona that featured some darker sonic styles, but was ultimately treading on the same classic pop girly themes of love and heartbreak, etc. However, this new record is clearly leaning in towards techno and club rave music. To promote this new album, Rebecca Black performed on Boiler Room as a DJ, which had sparked some discourse on Twitter because I think some music critic tried to dunk on Rebecca Black because he was like, oh, why is Boiler Room platforming child star has-beens like LA is so blah 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 blah, etc etc. And then someone had to let him know that actually Rebecca Black has been DJing local shows for many years now, and experience really shows in this album, not just with how the songs sound but the thematic elements of the project overall. All the songs are about feeling free, feeling confident, about letting go on the dance floor, really experimenting with this sense of catharsis that you can definitely find when you're on a club. This is best seen in the tracks Salvation, Trust, and Twist the Knife. Personally, I really love Twist the Knife, and I also really love Do You Even Think About Me? But my absolute favorite song of the album is 100% Sugar Water Cyanide. I love this beautiful juxtaposition of cute feminine verses with these catchy, punchy chants that fits perfectly in the club. You're like, I'm the back of the club, bass go. It's really, really wonderful. I love it so much. I'm gonna put this in year-end list material. And then I listened to I Used to Think I Could Fly by Tate McRae. This was released in 2022. So Tate McRae is a Canadian singer-songwriter, pop star girly who got her start as a competitive dancer and from posting her original songs and covers on YouTube. While she had been releasing music for a lot longer because of her YouTube career, this album is her debut. I would not have listened to this if I wasn't writing a longer review on So Close to What, which is her latest album released in 2025, because Tate McRae's music before So Close to What was just not aligned at all with my personal taste in music, and it's super clear in this project. I also think that even though Tate had been writing for several years at the time of this debut album's release, I think her lyrical songwriting skills was still in its infancy. Let's just say that. Tate has a tendency to tell, not show, when it comes to songwriting, which I personally kind of find boring. I'm not expecting her to write like Joni Mitchell or Fiona Apple, like imbue every line with metaphors and similes, etc. But I feel like I tend to gravitate towards music that can present me with a kind of challenge. The production on the album overall is very polished. You can tell a lot of money went into it, but I don't know, it felt kind of pedestrian. Nothing that you can't find with anyone else. Despite my lackluster feelings, I feel that I learned a lot more about Tate for sure. The biggest thing being that I think Tate McRae thinks that she is a loser. She very much isn't, but when you listen to the music and the lyrics, it's littered with insecurities and second guessing. She really leans into these themes of being unlucky in love, of feeling like she's second choice. There's a lot of teenage hurt that maybe had stemmed from her, competitive background of like having to compete for attention and accolades as a dancer alongside maybe getting her start on YouTube. Maybe she's only starting to unlearn from in her latest album. That prefrontal cortex is finally kicking in, we can tell. But regardless, Tate is an angsty girl at her core, and while so close to what is a step towards the more defined and expected pop girl persona that society expects women to fall into, I feel kind of guilty that the success of that album will only further push Tate away from the kind of music that she seems to gravitate towards and to the music and persona that everyone keeps asking her to fill. Because based off of this debut album, I have a lot of thoughts about this, but I'm gonna wrap this up. I'm gonna put this in at least I learned something new, because I did learn something. And then I listened to 99.9 Psychic Radio from Psychic Fever from Exile Tribe. This is an EP that was released in 2024. So Psychic Fever from Exile Tribe, that's the full name of the band, is a boy band group consisting of 7 members and are based in Japan. Exile Tribe is the name given to the collective artists under LDH, which is the Japanese management and entertainment company that manages Psychic Fever from Exile Tribe and was founded by the original members of a Japanese boy group called Exile in 2003. So it's a bit convoluted, but I think it makes more sense if you're already attuned to idol group conventions. But this family tree situation just isn't really relevant to my thoughts on the EP. I just thought that this was a very interesting kind of dynamic going on that I have countered yet. I actually discovered this EP because I was listening to a DJ set on YouTube that incorporated the main single of the EP, Just Like That, and I was completely obsessed with this song. So I looked up who the group was. I can't really speak for the quality of the B-sides as rap songs because I couldn't be bothered looking up the lyrics. But all I know is that Just Like That is a certified platinum song in my room. I was replaying that shit so much. It's so addictive. I love these glistening retro synths. The swagger and the delivery of the members are so, entertaining, and this enrapturing beat that really puts a gun to your head and demands that you dance and groove along. So it's really good. I loved it so much. I also really like Temperature and Rocket a decent amount. These tracks lean towards R&B a little bit more. And overall, I thought this was a very strong project. It's a bit too short, though, is the thing. I'm gonna put this in Gems Found in the Mind. I'm really looking forward to discovering more music from this group. And then I listened to The Fame by Lady Gaga. This was released in 2008. Lady Gaga is one of those pop stars that need no introduction. In preparation for listening to the new Lady Gaga album, Mayhem, I thought I should go and revisit her older work to better reflect on the new album. And I could have sworn I've already listened to this already, but I don't remember a good amount of the second half of the album. So either I had listened to the album, but it was a long time ago and I just haven't reviewed it on the channel, or I straight up just misremembered and I actually haven't listened to the full album. So to be honest, I actually found this album to be pretty front heavy, meaning that all of the best songs are in the first half. Track 1 to 5 are just bombastic, legendary, show-stopping, spectacular hits. Just Dance, Love Game, Paparazzi, Poker Face, Nothing Else I Can Say are the soundtracks to my childhood. It's insane how she came out the gate of her debut like just swinging. This literally changed, the landscape of pop music for the rest of time. And then from then on, it's kind of hit or miss for me. I don't think the rest of the B-sides really live up to the highs of the earlier songs because the highs were so astronomically high that it's really obvious why the other songs were not as well known. They overshadowed the rest of the B-sides. None of the other songs really gave me pause except for Starstruck. I'm so obsessed with it. It's so effortlessly chic and cool, and I've just never heard Lady Gaga go for a sound like this before, so I thought it was so perfect. It's also gaining a little bit of traction and resurgence on Instagram Reels, at least from what I've seen, which is nice to see. The song The Fame is probably the best thesis song of the entire album, as in it captures the essence of the project, the endless and life-ruining chase of opulence, debauchery, and notoriety that the album is about. I'm gonna put this in French toast. There's no way that I can put it anywhere else. And then I listened to Like a Virgin by Madonna. This was released in 1984. Madonna, much like Lady Gaga, is an artist that hardly needs an introduction, considering that her career is twice as long as I've been alive. I am continuing my Madonna discography deep dive with her second album. This album contains arguably two of Madonna's most popular songs ever, and probably two of the most recognizable songs in Western society, ever in the history of music, whatever. We have Material Girl, the battle cry for the uber feminine girly pops who not only accept but also embrace the materiality that being a woman demands. This song is a very tongue-in-cheek commentary on how being materialistic is clearly gendered, and in a lot of ways, even though we as women get, punched down for trying to take advantage of that, like at times it really is the only way that we can move forward, thrive, navigate society. There are so many books probably written about just this one song, and you can read that in your own time. Unfortunately, I have to proceed. I have 7 other albums to review in the video, but I think Material Girl is the best song of the album. Not even close. It's funny that they put this in the beginning though, because it makes every other song that comes after it clearly not as good. I've always liked Material Girl whenever it came on the radio, but hearing it in the context of the album and trying to place it in kind of pop music history and listening to it more intentionally makes me understand the weight of the lyrics more, and I feel like I have gained a newfound appreciation for the song. And I also went down a rabbit hole of Madonna's live shows, and there's this absolutely charming live performance from the 1985 The Virgin Tour where her baby girl vocal delivery is just perfect and scratches this itch in my brain. This coquettish persona that she embodies actually feels so revolutionary even decades on, so it's just so good. I'll put the video link in the description so you guys know what I'm talking about. The other hit single in this album is of course Like a Virgin, which is a song about the ecstasy of first love and infatuation and breaking through that wall of naivete, which is obviously perfect for Madonna's kind of baby girl voice. It's actually so fun, but I still like Material Girl way more. Otherwise, I wasn't really super obsessed with any of the other B-sides of the album, except for Love Don't Live Here Anymore. I was actually really impressed with the emotional delivery here, and it's quite captivating, so that's cool. I liked it a lot. I'm gonna put this in Gems Found in the Mind just because aside from maybe those 3 tracks, I'm not really thinking about listening to this over and over. And then I listened to Alivio by Chungha. This was released in 2025. Chungha is a K-pop idol who got her start in the K-pop girl group IOI in 2016, and since 2018 has kind of cemented herself one of the key female K-pop soloists. She took a bit of a hiatus as she switched record labels, and given the fast-paced nature of K-pop, I think she did fall by the wayside a little bit, given that the time that she was absent in, there was, an influx of new K-pop girly pops. I can see why it was really important for her to have a really strong comeback to show and remind everyone that she is indeed that girl. I inevitably compare this project with Carencia because that was the era of Chungha where her place in K-pop felt the strongest and the clearest, but also Carencia is such a strong and fully realized album. It was the peak of Chungha's artistic career so far. Even though she had released an EP before this, I feel like I can comfortably hold Carencia as a standard for the rest of her work. Given also that Alivio's album title borrows from Carencia's naming scheme, Alivio is a Spanish word that means relief, which makes sense given the title track of the album is called Stress, which is about partying and, relieving yourself of that stress. Take it easy, no stress. In this album, Chungha continues to have her finger on the pulse of pop music, experimenting with liquid drum and bass, R&B, and obviously dance music. Chungha's voice is perfect for pop music because it's so malleable that it's easy to keep up with the ebbs and flows of pop music. The first track, Creepin', is low-key, high-key Blackiana Grande nachos. Ariana Grande has always been in Chungha's mood board, so this isn't exactly surprising, but the Olivia Rodrigo, Avril Lavigne, Fall Out Boy nachos in Thanks for the Memories is a bit more surprising. She obviously has a preference for singing in English. That makes sense. She grew up in the United States, and to me, this is an indicator of her plans for the future. I definitely feel like she wants to make that jump from K-pop idol to just like pop girl, kind of like how Jennie and Lisa and Rose are trying to do. I enjoyed this album enough to put it in French toast. The only thing I can critique is the lack of an overarching narrative. This is literally just a collection of songs that she sounds good in, no intentionality or detailed storytelling whatsoever, which is kind of disappointing given how structured Carencia was. So other than that, I really enjoyed this, putting it in French toast. Okay, so if things look a little bit different or sound a little bit different, it's because my camera battery died while I was filming. So I had to wait for my battery to charge again. So we're gonna continue as if nothing happened. And then I listened to Read My Lips by Sophie Ellis-Bextor. This was released in 2001. Originally, Sophie Ellis-Bextor was the lead vocalist for the band The Audience in the late 1990s, but she debuted in 2001 with this album. I listened to this album because I wanted to know more than one song from Sophie Ellis-Bextor, aside from Murder on the Dance Floor, which gained a sudden virality after it was featured on the movie Saltburn in 2023. I grew up hearing this song a decent amount on the radio, so for me it wasn't too surprising for it to resurface so intensely. I think it's a very catchy song that the younger listeners have absolutely no problem enjoying with, and the nostalgia for this type of sound for adults like me is very strong. Personally, I think the best song of the album is Music Gets the Best of Me. It's an absolutely incredible pop song that I will fight tooth and nail for to secure its place in the Pop Music Hall of Fame. While I can agree that Murder on the Dance Floor's fame is well deserved and it's very fun and catchy and memorable, the fact that Music Gets the Best of Me isn't as loved or acclaimed, to me, it's easily the highlight of the album. I also really liked Take Me Home, which is a cover of a Cher song from 1979. Unfortunately, after that point, I feel like I kind of lost interest in the album. The rest of the tracks I wasn't really feeling. I'm not really sure if it's like the singer-songwriter vibe that she's going for that is not gelling with me, but I wish I did like it more. Unfortunately, I can only really put this in the most album ever. And then I listened to Destiny by DJ Sabrina, the Teenage DJ. This was released in 2023. DJ Sabrina, the Teenage DJ, is a completely indescribable artist. They are a DJ based in the UK, and me getting into their music has reshifted how I viewed music, which is incredibly high praise. Their music can fall under plunderphonics, which is a music genre in which tracks are constructed by sampling recognizable musical works. There are other projects from DJ Sabrina like Hex that samples conversations from other media like TV shows and movies. I personally really loved Hex. It was released in 2024, and I was motivated to listen to more of DJ Sabrina's works after listening to it. I chose Destiny because I thought that was the one that my friend had recommended, but it turns out they were talking about Charmed, a completely different album. And I'm saying that because I feel like if it wasn't for that misunderstanding, this probably wouldn't have been the album that I chose to go for after Hex, only because Destiny is 3 hours long. It's a very long listen for me, at least. I don't know about you. It's longer than Hex. Hex was already quite a undertaking for me, and that was only 2 hours. And I think that's one of the biggest features about DJ Sabrina, this music that stands out to me, and what I love the most about it, and what is the reason why it has kind of reshifted how I feel about music. It tests my endurance, really looks me in the eye and asks me, can you handle giving your attention, your whole attention to me for that long? And I feel like because I love the music so much, I want to say yes. And that kind of pushes me further to become a different listener, a different kind of listener than I was before discovering DJ Sabrina. In my review of Hex, the album, I kind of waxed poetic about the space and relationship that you develop with the project the longer you sit with it, and that is something you could definitely say about Destiny as well. However, I think I love Destiny more than Hex because it's a little bit more upbeat, and I feel like all of my favorite parts of Hex are taken and are expanded upon in this album. I feel like you could say that Hex is a little bit more plunderphonics than Destiny. I think Destiny does feels a bit more dance groovy vibes than Hex is. I think Hex is kind of playing a lot more with its like sampled conversations from TV shows more than Destiny does, which you could say is probably maybe an evolution of DJ Sabrina's DJing style. As much as I love this project, I can't help but feel this contradiction of listening to the album on my own with my headphones, because I feel like I should be listening to it in real time at the club as God intended. This is the kind of music that I wish I could hear at the club but never do, because I don't know, maybe I'm not going to the right clubs, but this is the club music of my dreams. It's very bittersweet realizing that I could never really experience the club or the rave the way that I want to, because this I feel like captures this euphoric, freeing, like joyous vibe that a like nightclub can present you. But because of my circumstances and the fact that this isn't really maybe the conventional way that people want to experience the club, it's never gonna happen the way I want it to. So I really love this album. I feel like it's a gift from DJ Sabrina. I'm gonna put this in French toast. And then I proceeded to listen to 3 Day 6 albums right after the other. I listened to Fourever from 2024, Shoot Me Youth Part 1 from 2019, and The Book of Us Gravity from 2018. To be honest, all 3 of these projects were similar enough quality that I think it's justified to kind of smoosh a few of my ideas of each review before kind of jumping into the more specific notes I have for each project. So first of all, Day 6 is a South Korean pop rock band. They debuted in 2016 and they originally had 6 members, but in the first year that they debuted, 1 member left. I can't remember why now. 2021 was the year that another member had left. They were a 5-member piece for a while. And as I've mentioned in the past, I will be attending the upcoming Day 6 concert in April here in Auckland. It's actually in like 2 or 3 days as of the day that I'm filming this video in. I really like Day 6. I feel like they are a fixture in the K-pop landscape for sure. While they came from an entertainment company that predominantly promotes and trains K-pop idol groups, I feel like that definitely has rubbed off on the way that their promotion cycles are. But I feel like we kind of need a group like Day 6 who's like a bit more rock and kind of like an in-between with people who are getting into K-pop and people who would eventually go on to be interested in other kinds of South Korean genres. So they're kind of like a little interesting bridge and also a really interesting contrast to K-pop idols, because I feel like the typical K-pop stan would say that like, oh, Day 6 isn't really K-pop. Because to me, I don't think they're K-pop at all. They're kind of treated like, I don't know why I'm ranting about this like in this video. It's not completely relevant, but anyway. So I think that's something to keep in mind when you listen to their music, if you try their music, because when I say pop rock, they definitely lean into that popness of the pop rock identity. And while they execute it very flawlessly, I feel like it's a bit of a double-edged sword. Positives being that like you can be 100% sure in what you're going to get when you listen to a project, because they tend to tread on specific themes consistently, like love, heartbreak, hopes, encouraging platitudes that hit or miss depending on the listener. So in one sense, you can appreciate that consistency, but I think I'm the kind of person that wants to be entertained through different ideas, different stories. So I think when I was listening to these 3 right after the other, I was kind of like, give me something else. I don't know. But that was just my experience when I was listening to it. So in the order that I listened to of these albums, I listened to Fourever, spelled as Fourever. And they did this because now they are officially a 4-piece band after Jay left back in 2021, but the members had also had to do their mandatory military service. So it wasn't until I think 2024 that they finally got back together and actually started releasing music as a 4-piece officially. If you're a Day 6 stan, I can totally understand that it will take a lot of time getting used to the lack of Jay's voice in the music, because that's definitely how I felt when I was listening to this and in the other album that I reviewed in January or last month. I never really understood why he left. I couldn't be bothered looking it up for this video, apologies, but it's undeniable that his contributions made Day 6 who they were, and their successes as a band were also his successes as an individual. So I think it will definitely take some time getting used to. I think the band did the best to work around it. They still sound very Day6. I actually enjoyed this quite a bit. I'm going to put this in French Toast. And then same thing with Shoot Me Youth Part 1. This was released in 2019. The first track, Warning, starts off this angsty project about heartbreak, warning the listener what to expect from the EP. The singer is trying to listen to his instincts about this love interest who isn't good for him, or maybe the song could be interpreted as a toxic forbidden love, but they're caught in the whirlpool of immediate instant attraction, infatuation, and of course this premonition in this track is vindicated in the next track, Shoot Me, which has, I think, a very catchy hook and very memorable. It's one of their more popular songs about a violent fight with their love as they break up and they're like, shoot me with your bullet, etc. And then the track is followed by Jalbuena, Somehow, where the singer is trying to bounce back from heartbreak and it's like, oh, somehow I feel a little bit better. And then the next two tracks are just them kind of like dipping their toes into love again after they, survive this explosive fallout. So I thought that was quite interesting. It's almost kind of the opposite of what Jisoo did, where she would start off with some, the first things of crush and like the honeymoon phase, and then they break up. Whereas this one is like the other way around. And then the final Day6 album I listened to was Book of Us, Gravity, released in 2018. This album contains one of my favorite Day6 songs ever, which is called Time of Our Life. I'm hoping, I know that they will play this in their concert because it's such an electric, crowd-pleasing song. I really enjoy it. To me, it sounds like an anime title song. When I listen to it, I feel like I could jump off a bridge into the sunset and, I could do anything. It's so inspiring. Like, it's really thrilling the way that Day6 can make wonderful pop rock music. It's really fun. Can't wait to hear it live though. I'm so excited. So I'm gonna put this album in a French Toast as well. I think it's justified. Like, Day6 is a very good band. They've been making music for a long time and they have a very, specific style and musical identity that obviously I want to be able to reward that consistency with, even if it kind of feels a bit boring when they don't like step out of that boundary that they've made for themselves. And that's all I listened to in March. Woohoo! So let's look at it one last time. Here is a pie chart of my listening activity in terms of decades at least. And that will do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button. And I would also love to hear from you guys what you thought of my commentary. Put it down in the comments. Let me know what you think. If you agreed or disagreed. If you have any recommendations, I'm happy to check them out. If you want to see more of my work, you are welcome to subscribe. My social media links are down in the description, alongside my Patreon and Ko-fi pages if you want to support my work. Otherwise, I can't wait to share my love with you again next time. I will see you soon. Bye. Living in a material world, and I am a material girl. You know that we are living in a material world, and I am a material girl.